With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. Ladies and gents, a minute before the end of Forest Liverpool, this looked very different on the agenda. We were going to set the world to burn. However, a bit of Darwin Núñez magic, and here we are with that Monday feeling. We are bouncing into work. We are looking forward to talking about everything Forest, everything ahead, injuries off the pitch, a small match of a game against Manchester City as well coming up, and the normal questions that you have. And here to join me as ever is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. So I know what the answer was going to be to this with a couple of minutes to go, David, but now we are where we are. How are we feeling this Monday morning?
Yeah, much better to reflect on a win, isn't it? And I mean, we were talking beforehand there, weren't we, about it's 98 minutes of feeling terrible and worry, and then, you know, Liverpool pull it out of the bag at the death. And it is the best way to win, but also the worst way in many ways, because you spend the entire match thinking, oh, today's not our day, it's not happening. You know, we're gonna have to talk about a disappointing draw against a relegation team, but Liverpool just do not know when they're beaten, do the under Jurgen Klopp, just ridiculous. They're winning in any way possible, and these last minute ones, the moment it goes in, it's the best feeling in football. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. We said that before. Sometimes you love to hammer teams 5 and 6-0, but there's something sweet in that last minute winner, as it were, especially at the moment, the way things are coming. I mean, to start with, and being honest, was it a case of Darwin heads that in and half your match report goes select all, delete, I'm going to have to rewrite this? Was that the starting point for Saturday?
Well, I'd say between this and the cup final as well, very much a case of, you know, not really having anything written at full time, because, to be honest, I just always think that they've got a chance of scoring because they've done it so frequently now. And you know that what you're going to write if it's a 0-0 draw, you know, it's not all result based. You've got to analyse the performance. So I've got notes written down and things that I'm thinking around the match, but it's hard to, you know, the tone of the entire piece is around it. You know, it has to be centered around what the result was, and it's, you know, even if it's a positive point, it has to be sort of couched with, you know, even though today was negative, this was good, or vice versa. You know, even though this was good, the result was negative. You've got to sort of write it in that way. So Yeah, so barely had anything written over those two, and I'm kind of glad I didn't bother because in the end it would have been deleting most of it. So the problem is you file quite late after that. But I mean, I'm happy to do those rewrites if Liverpool keep popping up with those last minute winners.
Yeah, certainly, because all the deletion of a bridge too far, injury ravaged, all those descriptions are by the by now. And I suppose, like you said, the result is everything. That's what it's about at the moment. As far as we know, there's no injuries. The performance overall, honest thoughts on that one?
Yeah, not bad. I'd say not bad. Liverpool. You look at the shot tallies, the XG. Liverpool had the best of that game. There's no doubt about it. But obviously, you have to be, to win these games up against a team that's fighting for its life away from home as well in the Premier League. You have to be, not just slightly the better side. You've got to be comfortably the better side. You've got to take your chances in the right moments. And Liverpool obviously hadn't done that. But I thought, the way they come away with the win as well, it reminded me a lot of, or made me think back to the 1-0 defeat there last season, and sort of, reminded really that, look, these games, it's so easy when it's tight like that and it's difficult and things aren't going for you to allow Nottingham Forest to take their one big chance and I thought what Liverpool did really well and what was the best element of the performance was this sort of determination. We're going to keep a clean sheet. We're going to keep a clean sheet. We're going to give ourselves the foundation to win it late. Even if things weren't working up top, okay, well, we just won't give anything away. Don't give anything away. And I thought they kept it really, really tight. I know Forest had a couple of opportunities or half opportunities, but I thought, by and large, Liverpool really, really restricted them and just kept it as solid as they can. They've controlled the match for large parts of it, or most of it, really. And again, this is with all the players they're missing at the moment, by the way. That is the absolute, that is why we have to that is the reason they're not quite at the best. That's a big factor in it. And so we've always got to have that as a mitigating factor in our minds. So they did what they had to in terms of keeping it tight, not giving the game away. And then when you do that, as I say, you give yourself a foundation to win the game late. And yeah, it comes in the 99th minute. So yeah, maybe there's a bit of fortune in that. But there's also an awful lot of quality in that moment. And you only have that platform if you defend really, really well. And I thought, last time Liverpool got beat at Forest, they pretty much deserved it, to be honest. So, this time around, the fact that they, kept it going, defended really well, kept that clean sheet, then you can win it in the 99th minute, and that's what they did.
Yeah, even, like say, asking players to go again who've just gone and gone and gone. Jurgen's admitted that. Bloody Joe Gomez in the 6, for Christ's sake. But they dug out a win, which is all that matters. There's a few contenders, probably not many in the attacking department, but that's understandable with what happened. Man of the match for you in this one?
Oh, Alexis McAllister by a long way. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal, possibly his best performance for Liverpool so far, and there've been some really good ones. I just thought he was dominant in midfield, both sides of the ball. I mean, the numbers sort of back it up. He contests 11 duels, so he's really busy defensively, which we've come to expect from him, but he also... now he's in that more advanced position. He's more involved in sort of chance creation now, and that's certainly started to step up over the last few weeks. I mean, he creates 6 chances in the end, and basically so many of them were big opportunities. I think most of Liverpool's best chances came through. I mean, there's 2 in the first half where he puts little dinks over the top. One for Diaz, one for Gakpo. Both probably should have done better in those situations. Great knocks in behind that really should have been finished off. Then in the second half, he dinks one over for Nunez on his head, which he nods wide, if you remember that one. So he really has mastered this little clip in behind. And then obviously the game-winning one is the one he does on his left foot, so he can do it with both feet. Beautiful ball in behind and nodded in by Nunez. And I thought it was fitting that he set up the winner because he was Liverpool's biggest creator, best player by a long way for me. I just thought he was phenomenal, and I absolutely love him watching him play.
£35 million. Absolutely.
Joke.
Absolutely ridiculous, especially when we talk about Albrighton's good business. I know it was a clause, but yeah, 35 million is just unreal. The weirdest thing that's come from the game, and I know we always try and steer away where possible from VAR, refs, controversy. You'd think the way this is playing out on certain platforms, that this is one of the great robberies almost in football of the 21st century, so to speak. I mean, this whole thing about the ball not going back, I mean, it happened to us, didn't it, with Harvey Elliott? There's a long time. Is this just being blown up for a narrative, do you think, this whole decision element?
Yeah, it's absolute bollocks, basically. I cannot believe it. And I think people will know who listen to this podcast, I'm consistent on refs. I'm not just saying this because it's Liverpool. Think back to the cup final. I said, I thought Caicedo was a yellow, not a red.
Yeah.
I think you could justify the Van Dijk goal getting ruled out. I'm not one of those, I'm not blinkered around refs, or I like to think not anyway. This is just total nonsense. And I cannot believe the fuss that's been made around it after. I mean, there's 1 minute 50, isn't there, between the restart and the goal being scored. And I actually watched it back in preparation for this podcast. I watched it back this morning, that specific passage of play. And there's the moment, isn't there, just seconds before the goal where Liverpool nick it back through Endo. And I would say in that situation, I actually don't think Forest have got great, solid control of the ball there. It's bouncing around a little bit. So, if that had been the only moment they had the chance to get possession, you could be a little bit aggrieved, even though there's such a ridiculous length of time. Maybe you could have a moan about it or whatever. But there's a moment where Szoboszlai fires a pass into Endo and his touch is terrible. And the ball breaks to Nico Williams in acres of space. He's got a man on his right-hand side who he can just funnel the ball out to, and Nottingham Forest can try and move up the pitch. What he does instead is the ball breaks towards him. He runs onto it and punts it downfield for a throw-in. Absolutely leathers it. So what more do Nottingham Forest want in that situation? Why did he do that? If you want the ball back, use it. Don't hit it downfield. You're trying to clear the stand and then complain that you didn't have a chance to get the ball back. It's absolutely crazy. And it's obvious there's a focus on it from Nottingham Forest fans, because obviously when you concede a 99th minute equaliser 99th minute winner in the situation they're in, you're really frustrated. But the way in which others have seized upon it is remarkable to me. I mean, you look at the fact that earlier in the game, the exact same situation happens the opposite way around. There's a restart that goes in Forest's favour when Liverpool have secure possession, and there's a head injury in the box. So at least the referee was consistent around that. So, and as I say, the amount of time and the fact that Nottingham Forest get the ball back and then just leather it upfield, you can just have no complaints whatsoever. It's ridiculous. And the idea it's being described as a momentous error, was it, by Mike Dean, is just pathetic. Yeah. And I mean, if we want to go back, if we want to say, and I heard Jermaine Genius amidst crying on Match of the Day about this, saying that, the game situation changes completely if Forest get it back in the corner there. Okay, well, what about the Bobby Clark shot that gets headed in behind earlier in the game? Okay, so if we want to take the chaos theory of football decisions like that, in that, that decision completely changes the path of the game. Okay, well, maybe Liverpool wins 6-0 if Bobby Clark wins a corner there.
Yeah,
if we want to do that, it doesn't make any difference if these slight decisions that have basically a very, very small amount of effect on the actual play. If we're saying they change the passage of the game completely, then we can take the one that happens in the first minute, a throw-in that goes the wrong way in the 54th minute. All this, it's nonsense. And as I said, the whole thing gets completely thrown out of the window by the fact that Nico Williams gets possession back and punts it up the field. I urge everyone to go and watch that back, because it's not he has it back in under pressure. He has it back in space with a man on the outside of him to pass to. And he doesn't want that option. He wants to get rid. So Nottingham Forest didn't want the ball. So, yeah, absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I think it exasperates as well, doesn't it? Because this whole Mark Clattenburg role that they've hired, which no one can quite understand.
I mean, don't get me started on that one, because ultimately he's not there to give his thoughts as a referee and his expertise to Nottingham Forest. He's there to lobby on behalf of Nottingham Forest through the press. And I actually think the Premier League should come down hard on Nottingham Forest for doing that. It should be banned, because there can be no good can come from a former referee lobbying in favour of his club, trying to muddy the waters around what the rules look like and how they should be applied. Particularly in a situation like that, where you would have said to Mark Clattenburg, when he was employed as a referee, had the exact same situation happened, and you showed him the situation with Nico Williams, which was basically a reset entirely in a new phase of play, he would have said, oh, well, we can't criticise Paul Tierney too much for that one. That's ridiculous that we're saying it, because it is ridiculous. But the fact is, he is now paid by Nottingham Forest to lobby on their behalf, and I think that is bad for football. And I'd be embarrassed if Liverpool were doing it. And I genuinely think it should be banned. I don't think it's good, because we've already got a situation, haven't we, where it's difficult enough for refs. They're already under a crazy amount of pressure. And I always push back against this. And we're allowing situations where former refs can put even more pressure on them. And Sky allowing Mike Dean to say that it's a catastrophic error or whatever he says. And again, surely as broadcasters, as journalists, we have a responsibility to, yes, acknowledge when there are errors, but also when it's situations like this, to not create this ridiculous narrative and throw even more pressure on referees when we've got situations where referees are already, we've already got it so bad. We're seeing grassroots referees getting attacked. This whole culture around referees and the decisions at the moment is so toxic to me. And yet we're allowing Nottingham Forest to have a lobbyist there. It's ridiculous. I think it should be banned, as I say.
It just seems, I generally can't even remember, and I know it's a while ago, this much furore against the whole Diaz VAR Spurs one. It just seems like ridiculous what's going on at the moment. Yeah, hopefully common sense prevails in all this. But yeah, who'd have thought we'd even be defending Paul Tierney in any way? But here we are, full circle of life, as it were. But I mean, back to the game, the positives. I know it's a last minute winner, which is the obvious one, but I wanted to ask you about Kelleher. I mean, he's kept 3 clean sheets in his last, and you think about those, the final against Chelsea, the FA Cup, Southampton, when we were under the cosh as well, and even this with like the one-on-one saves at the same time. He's been as good as anything Alisson could produce, hasn't he, recently?
Yeah, and I mean, there's no bigger compliment than that is that he's, Liverpool haven't missed Alisson up to this point. Some big tests to come, and he's got to keep showing that consistently, but he's been absolutely phenomenal. The amount of XG that Liverpool have given up over those games. I mean, I've seen a few people suggest it's unsustainable that Liverpool can keep playing at that level and keep getting away with it. And that actually, statistically speaking, is absolutely true. But the fact is, the only reason Liverpool are giving up so much XG is because, they're absolutely decimated by injuries. They're asking the same team to go over and over again, and it's a severely weakened team. So, I don't expect them to have to keep going to the well in that sense. And I hope that Kelleher is not going to be as busy going forward, but he's been phenomenal when he's been called upon. I mean, not sure whether that chance, the Elanga one, would have been offside in the end. It was very, very tight, wasn't it? But Kelleher has no clue. We will probably never know up to this point. And it's a phenomenal save because he's going the other way, isn't he? And just gets the foot out there. And that's a very Alisson thing to do, to pull the save out of the bag like that. So, yeah, I mean, he had a lot of criticism early in the season, I remember, and some people questioning whether he should actually play in the League Cup final. And we spoke about it, didn't we? And both sort of agreed, really, that you've got to show faith in your backup. But I also think more than anything, it was kind of, we know how good Kelleher is. I think when he's not in rhythm, that maybe, yes, you can see a couple of weak saves or errors. That that's true of probably most goalkeepers. But now he's in that rhythm and he's busy and he's playing consistently. We're seeing absolutely the best of him. And I think, do you know what, more than anything, from his personal point of view, he'll be so glad that he stayed at Liverpool this season, because I think he's, as much as he's got all these games as well, and that's a big part of it, I also think he'll think, look, I've finally proven now that, all these clubs that were interested in me last summer but went for more experienced options, I've proven now that I'm absolutely ready to go and be number one somewhere. So I think it's been great for Liverpool, great for him. And what a job he's done since he's come in for Alisson. He's been fantastic.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I think that word's perfect. Rhythm. I always think him and I think Simicast, they always seem to come in cold. Yeah. They take a bit to get going, and I get it, people judge them because you can only say what you see type of thing. But now that he's fully up and running, he does look an unreal keeper. There's no other way I can describe him. And the thing about this team, especially, and I know people will say, as I'm describing this, that there's been better Liverpool teams like the 1920, the title-winning, European Cups. But is there something just special about this team at the moment in the sense of the amount of late winners they're getting it, the injury ravage narrative, the way that they're sort of going to the well and beyond almost. And I mean, Christ, they're winning finals with kids in the lineup. Let's just be clear. There is something special about this team at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It is that resilience, isn't it? Is just ridiculous, really. And I think, what's kind of most impressive, really, is that it's not just sort of resilience in terms of, just digging out last minute winners constantly. I mean, obviously they did that in the cup final and they did it against at the weekend, obviously. But it's also just a general sort of mentality of, you think they sweep Luton aside in the end. They do the same to Southampton. It's resilience and quality in that goes so deep in the team, no matter who's playing. And I just think it's basically a team built in Jurgen Klopp's image, isn't it? Showing that, the mentality that he's got as a manager. And, I think it possibly is up there as the most resilient because, you look at every player that's in the team now or around the squad, is it basically a player he's either brought through or signed? I think is Joe Gomez maybe the only one who he hasn't actually signed. So, this is probably the most Jurgen Klopp team, the most Jurgen Klopp-like that a team has been at Liverpool since he's been in charge. And you can see that absolutely running through from top to bottom, all the way through to the academy. And that's how you come through periods like this, 4 games in 11 days with 4 wins and a trophy on board, despite having at times 10, 11, 12, 13 injuries. It's a remarkable feat of man management and also from the players themselves to, it's all right to say that Jurgen Klopp has instilled this mentality and they've got to have that themselves, that quality, that ability to drag out a moment of brilliance late in the game. And they've all got that in them, haven't they? And that's how you get through a period like this with a trophy on board and 4 wins.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't matter who seems to come in, whether it's kids, they all have an impact. They all seem to know their role. And I did want to sort of highlight Jayden Danns as well, because I know you've spoken about him before and how well he's done, but also singled him out in the sense of thinking he could have that frame, that ability to make the step up as Liverpool forward, which is maybe, like we say, not selecting people, but is difficult to see sometimes for academy kids that way. I mean, even in this one, I love the fact he rattled the keeper that he was going for it. An impressive cameo, and Christ, that double in the week as well felt pretty special in a certain way. Have you got hopes that, I know we're looking for players coming back and we'll talk about that, but Jayden Danns could still have an impact up until the end of this season?
Yeah, I really, really like the look of him. I just think it's, as I said, about, physical profile is absolutely there, looks ready for men's football and yes, has a lot to learn in certain aspects of the game, but he just looks like he could make the leap. I really do sort of seem to, because it's his ability to sort of sniff out chances. We'd seen that in the games up to him scoring. We'd seen that he had the ability to get into areas, and then the composure of that first Southampton finish is just ridiculous, really, for a teenager right in front of the Kop, a moment he's dreamed of all his life, to not just try and put his foot through it and try and squeeze it in some way. Just to think, I know how this feels now. I know when the goalkeeper's closing me down, I've got to go over him. Just unbelievable composure. And then the second goal he scores, it's just, I love that so much because he's on the move, isn't he? He's very much sort of striker's instinct to get there. And as I say, the physical profile stuff, that came into play, I thought. I mean, he only has 3 touches at the weekend against Forest, but all 3 of them are good. And he when he gets the ball, he drops into that little space, that Firmino-esque space, turns out, little ball with the outside of his boot out to Tsimikas, and then tries to hit the box. That's exactly what you want your centre forwards to be doing. Playing like he's got experience and he knows what he should be doing. And as I say, he's got the physical profile to match that, so he can mix it with the big boys. And I wrote actually at the weekend, can he be sort of I said it on my YouTube actually, sorry. Can he be almost an Origi type between now and the end of the season? Because he's, he gets chances, he gets in good areas. He's big enough to get at headers. He can hold the ball up and pass it off. I almost think he can take on that role. And, Liverpool have got a lot of options, but they've not got Jota for a little while. So maybe having that that fifth option as Dan's to maybe come off the bench if you need a goal late in the game, would be, I think he's shown enough to show that he should be in and around that. And, that's an incredible leap really from where he was at the start of the season, being around the 18s, not even the 21s. And now to be around the first team, thinking that, he could be that fifth option in attack is phenomenal. But I just think he deserves it. I think, everything he's done so far in the first team has shown real quality. And, I think he should be that option going forward, at least until Jota gets back.
Yeah, it's a product of circumstance in the injuries, but he just doesn't look out of place. He almost looks ready for men's football. So it would be great to see him get minutes. And speaking of injuries, we got the full raft from Jurgen Klopp on Friday. We even got, I suppose, a little bit of a bad bit from the embargo and Alisson. It sounds like a serious one in that regard. I was panicking at first that he wasn't mentioning Salah, and then someone jumped in at the end and said, just because I was thinking, oh God, is it going to be Salah in the embargo like Alisson going to be bad? But from what you heard, are you hopeful of Salah for City?
To be fair, on the Salah one, I was there in the press conference and it was the first question from Vinny, wasn't it? And he he reeled off about 9 players. So I think, to be fair to Klopp, I think he just forgot about Salah once he got through all the ones before that. So I don't think he was trying to be sort of quiet about it or anything like that. But there was a follow-up, wasn't there, about Salah? And he said, the signs were, wasn't there, that he'd be back this week. So it'd be fantastic if he could get some minutes in Prague, wouldn't it? And then, that sets him up perfectly for City. And he's, I'm sure being absolutely top shape. He doesn't lose a lot. He hasn't been out long enough to maybe, feel like he's lost a yard or anything like that. And he needs to get back. So, to have him in the squad at least for City would be massive. But I'm hopeful that he could even play, and that would be huge, wouldn't it? If he could start that game, because he's still Liverpool's best player, and yes, Liverpool keep coming through this period winning, but at some point you're going to need your best players, and he absolutely is up there. On the Alisson bit, by the way, I kind of read those quotes slightly differently. I don't know. It didn't feel like it was a massive step change from what had previously been said in terms of post international break or thereabouts that Alisson will be back. I'm kind of hopeful it's not. When you read the actual quotes, they don't seem quite as bad as maybe they were positioned as. So hopefully it's nothing too bad, and we're not looking at a Jota situation or anything like that. So he's already been out for a while, hasn't he? So. He's got that international break and hopefully won't be too long after that, if not straight back after that. So, I don't think that was maybe as bad as it was positioned, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, injuries. And it is a negative, but I think it's right to ask this because the Salah, and I'm calling it a Salah re-injury because it's the same thing, the muscle, it almost seems to have gone under the radar slightly, maybe because we're all just hopeful with the games that are coming and we had City on the horizon and wanted to get him fit. But this would be the third player that's been re-injured, with the same thing and then had a lengthier absence out. I know I almost phrased this a couple of weeks ago, but now that Salah's in the mix, it is a third one. It is right to ask a few questions of what's going on, isn't it? Like bringing them back, rehab, all that type of thing.
Yeah, it's not great, is it, to have 3 re-injuries happen in particularly in a situation where Liverpool have been, which is that they've already been really short of players anyway. The two things probably go hand in hand in the sense that Liverpool are trying to force people back slightly quicker to boost their options. But obviously, it's not been the right approach they've taken. And I'm sure, like any medical staff, they'll probably have some regrets in the way things have gone. You look at Brentford and think, that the hand was slightly forced, wasn't it, by the Jota injury with Salah being pushed a little bit too far on that front. But, again, they will probably, they absolutely will regret it because he's been out since. And it definitely was a re-injury, by the way. There was talk, wasn't there, after it was, he's maybe felt some fatigue. That was nonsense, really. That wasn't true at all. It was definitely, he sustained he re-injured the muscle at Brentford, and that's why he's been out so long. But, ultimately, Szoboszlai is back now. We hope we see Salah this week in the next couple of games, and hopefully Trent after the international break as well. So, if Liverpool can get a couple more wins here, they've maybe got away with it and maybe you can forget about it. But I think a lot of learning will be taken from that situation because it's obviously, you do not want that in the situation Liverpool are in, to be bringing players to you back and then losing them again, because that's absolutely what they try and avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't afford any more at all. So hopefully the lessons are learned that way, definitely. And sticking on off the pitch updates, because there's things galore going off the pitch, as is expected at the moment. But the starting point was an interesting one with fans. The accounts were released, weren't they, for 22-23, which showed around a small, not in the football terms, I'm saying small, not in world terms, but around a £9 million loss. I know you've focused on accounts before. It's something you've been heavily involved in. I know at times as well, without putting words in your mouth, you've been quite critical of the way FSG have borrowed or done certain projects as well. I always think people go off the deep end on these things without fully understanding. The accounts, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, they're not that bad, are they, from what you'd expect? A £9 million loss in the current climate?
No, pretty good, to be honest. It is my take on it. I mean, I wrote an analysis piece that I'd urge everyone to maybe dig out on my Twitter and have a look at that for a sort of deeper dive into it. But yeah, I think pretty good. I mean, ultimately, FSG try and run the club in and about break even, don't they? So they want every penny that comes in to be spent, because ultimately their big profit is coming when they sell the club, whenever that happens. So they don't have to worry about that. So it's all about, they don't need to generate profits to take dividends out the club. All they need to do is run it at break even, and that should be enough to have a successful sporting side of things as well. So the fact they've got a slight loss, is mostly down to the fact that, look, they went from a season beforehand where they had a modest profit, which was on the basis of going to, they got to the final of every cup competition they were involved in. Won two of them, were in the Premier League title race until the last day as well. So they went from that to being knocked out of everything early. So that has an impact then on match day revenue, your revenues to media as well, because you're not getting broadcast as frequently. So, to go from profit to loss there is pretty understandable there. And to be honest, you look at the steps they've taken on the commercial side. They had actually wiped out any sort of any losses they've made on match day and media through the lack of games or the absence of a few games. They've wiped that out by actually improving the commercial income, which shows you the steps they've taken on that front. That's really encouraging. What had actually gone, the biggest difference between the profit and loss in that situation was the fact that they'd gone, the admin costs had gone up so much. Now, there'd been a slight jump in the wage bill, but a lot of it is sort of utility bills, which, anyone who's running a household at the moment will know, we're not running a stadium or a stadium and two training grounds and all that, offices in Liverpool, offices in London. So you can see where a lot of those admin costs have come from, and that's a big leap. And, that's one thing they'll want to keep an eye on. There's not a lot they can do about that, but that's sort of slightly eaten into available cash they've got. But ultimately, if you have a good season now, which Liverpool very much look like they're on track for, if you have a good season this season, match day and media will go back up. Commercial will continue to grow as it is, keeping growing the record numbers as it is at the moment. Keep getting those sponsors in. Then I think next year, even with the lack of Champions League money, because that will start to tell in next year's account. I still think they've got a chance to be in and around that break even again. And then once you're back in the Champions League, you should be having a lot more available cash there. And the Anfield Road end will come online. Net debt will go down because of the dynasty equity investment as well. So look in really, really good position as far as I'm concerned. I just think there's going to be, FSG aren't big spenders. They don't feel like they need to, and you could argue with them when you look at what the season Liverpool are having. But I think there'll be, available cash or whatever the next manager feels that they need to do next summer. There's no question about that. I suppose the big sort of question mark on that actually is how much do they need to do with this squad, and probably not a lot. Right. But I think that will be up to the manager more than anything else, because it won't be down to a lack of cash, is what I'm saying. The accounts, my too long didn't read summary is that they're looking really good, Nick, and are well positioned to continue this success after Jurgen Klopp leaves.
Makes sense, which also makes sense in terms of who else might be joining off the field, because sporting director stories understandably are going to keep rumbling. But I know you will have seen this. It really sort of went up to fever pitch at one stage. And the big hitters as well, as we know, David Ornstein was talking about it. Paul Joyce had articles. The Michael Edwards that FSG is still in for him, still trying to do it. And it almost sounds like, say, reading the articles, that he wants above a sporting director role, and what that will be. People obviously speculate. It's all a bit of speculation. Your honest thoughts on this scenario at the moment?
Yeah, well, Liverpool are obviously doing it. I mean, initially when the stories came out, I couldn't kind of sense where they were coming from, because some of it didn't make, I don't know, the way it was positioned didn't kind of make sense to me. But I think that the subsequent stories that have come out about Michael Edwards would want this to come back to Liverpool. I think it's quite clear which side that is that those stories are emerging from, and I think that shows you the position that they're in. I mean, whether there's some resistance on FSG's part to give him what he wants, we'll have to see. I mean, I expect a decision on this imminently, whether he's going to come or go, because they are running out of time and they want a resolution on this ASAP. So I think this is going to move pretty soon, but I think there's clearly. The fact he hasn't completely ruled it out suggests he would come back for a decent sized role. And I kind of wonder whether the role he wants is basically what Mike Gordon is doing.
Yeah.
Overseeing things to that degree. And I actually wonder whether FSG will be willing to give that to him, because I think, Mike Gordon wanted to step away, didn't he, at one point? He did for a little brief while. And I think there's enough trust there in Edwards to give him that role, and Liverpool would do that. So I wonder if that's what we're going to see happen. If an agreement can be reached that he will come back in that role, then he will appoint a new sporting director, and then we'll see the manager after that. The fact it's still ongoing as we stand, as we're talking now this morning, suggests it hasn't been ruled out at all. The fact that his demands were effectively being put out there is, I think, suggests that it's a possibility. We just don't know if that agreement can be reached and whether they can fully agree on what that role would look like, and of course, remuneration will come into that as well, absolutely. But we'll see. I think it's we're in a key week here now. This has surely got to be some movement on this, and it's an interesting one. I would say whether he comes or goes, there shouldn't be too much of an obsession from the fans' point of view. I would love to have him back, because I think he's a really good thinker. Really, the way he would structure it, I have a lot of faith in him. As an executive, I think he's very, very good at what he does. But I also wouldn't be too worried if he didn't. Liverpool. You think of the business last summer, signing Endo, signing McAllister. They didn't need Michael Edwards to do business like that. Szoboszlai, Gravenberch looks really good as well, doesn't he? A few absolute bargains in there as well. So they're not completely tied to whether Michael Edwards comes back or not. I would like to see him back, but also I'm not pessimistic about the future if they don't get Michael Edwards back.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin De Vries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it doesn't all end, but like you said, it's got to happen quickly, hasn't it? One way or the other. Time is ticking, especially if you start thinking of summer targets that way, which kind of leads us nicely to questions from the viewers. And there was a good number. There was about 80,000 around Michael Edwards, which we kind of addressed now as well, that there's no sort of secret. I think people are obsessed there's a secret story waiting to break that everyone knows, but there's genuinely not in that regard. But one of the first ones that I've called out, and it links to Michael Edwards, but I like the way this was described, was there's quite a lot happening, which I'll be honest, I wasn't fully aware of in terms of FSG. Like Billy Hogan's had a promotion. There's other people. Theo Epstein's come in, as one Discord viewer mentioned. Is that gearing up to something else like Michael Edwards, or do you think this is just FSG restructuring or doing things in the background?
It's tough to say as well, because Billy Hogan, in theory, is supposed to keep his job as it is at Liverpool, isn't he? Even alongside this promotion. So, you could argue that it's not going to affect it at all. But as I say, I mentioned there about Mike Gordon, maybe, I think they would like to maybe, it feels like that's maybe a possibility that Mike Gordon steps away and maybe it's Michael Edwards or someone else sort of steps into that role. And that restructuring then would really work, wouldn't it? Because you could probably take Billy Hogan away from anything football related or anywhere near it and leave him to do what he does best. So, I think that's a possibility, but I just don't think they would be so public about that unless they had an agreement with someone like Edwards that was happening. So, They could dovetail nicely together, those situations, but I don't think that they are absolutely tied together. Is sort of my take on it. But I mean, maybe we will get clarity on that in terms of if Michael Edwards does. We'll see that story pop up this week that he is coming back. Then maybe it has made it obvious that's been in the works for a while. But we'll have to see. But I think there's room for manoeuvre for FSG on that they're not sort of tying themselves in knots if he doesn't want to come back in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, you hope it's imminently because time is ticking more than anything. And a great question that came in, and it's something that you said, because I know, and it's true, you've been a big champion for Harvey Elliott this season and all that he's achieved. But the last week, especially the amount of minutes, the impact, I mean, there was that interview after the game the other night where they were talking to him about the kids, almost forgetting that Harvey Elliott's not 46 years old as they're having that chat. But do you see it in the last few weeks that he has taken another step forward in his Liverpool career?
Oh, massively. I mean, I don't even think it's been kind of his best performances he's ever had for Liverpool. But what I've loved about it is this work rate, the amount of minutes he's got through is ridiculous. And I mean, you talk about players stepping up in the absence of really important stars, players who've been injured. I mean, Harvey Elliott could not have done anything more. He's absolutely run himself into the ground. I was amazed he started that Southampton game with what he put in the games before it. I couldn't believe that he started it. And he did, and he played well, and he was a big part of it. And again, working his socks off, being absolutely relentless. He's just a credit to the club, really. And you can see he's a supporter, I think, in the way he plays the game. He just never, ever stops running. And as I say, in terms of stepping up, coming in for that 4 games in 11 days, 4 wins, and he's been part of them all, absolutely brilliant. And you forget that he's a young player. I mean, sometimes I'm watching the games, if he gives a pass away or anything, I'm like, oh, come on, Harvey. And maybe a bit more critical of him than I should be because I know how good he is and how good he can be. And I just think he's going to be phenomenal for Liverpool. And I think he's shown already that he's a massively important part of this squad. And I'm really going to enjoy watching his development because I do think this has been a really big few weeks from him in terms of convincing him how big a part of the squad he is now. Obviously, his next step is to become a big part of the first team, but he's got a lot of time on his side to do that. We're only now seeing, say, Phil Foden at Manchester City being that main man at City finally this season, and he's 23 now. So Harvey Elliott can hang around this Liverpool squad and be as important as he is at the moment for the next 3 years. He'll be a superstar, no doubt about it. I love watching him play and I love watching his development. And I think anyone who's sort of criticised him in the past couple of years or suggested he's not going to be good enough must have sort of egg on the face at the moment because he's 20 and he's ridiculous. And there's even more to come. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how he does develop. Zero doubt about that. And I like this one that came in naturally quite after the game against Forest. Darwin Núñez, is he a contender for either team or player of the year despite the media narrative around him? And the one thing, because I liked that a few people sent this in, when you look at the stats and the importance that his goals and his moments have had, does that help or add weight to his argument as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure he'd be in contention for player of the year or team of the year. That's my personal take because you think, look at what Salah's done, look at what Haaland's done, Ollie Watkins has been phenomenal this season. So there's 3 forwards who've already produced more than him sort of in sheer numbers. And they all 3 of them deserve to be in and around that sort of mix in team or player of the year. Absolutely. But I think and with Núñez as well, it's worth considering there have been periods this season where he's had little dips, little goal droughts he's been on. He still is a bit raw, isn't he? But what we're seeing now is actually he's finally adding that little bit of consistency. I really hope, and it's massive for Liverpool actually, that he keeps this up now till the end of the season. And this is the new Núñez. We see this consistency now. There's no goal droughts, no moments where he's going to miss big chances between now and the end of the season. We saw Haaland miss a 0.89 XG chance. It will happen, but if the frequency of that goes down and he keeps making important contributions and he then I'll be more than happy with that at the end of the day because I think he's emerging as a very, very important player for Liverpool. And, you think when he's coming back into the squad yesterday, I'm thinking I would have maybe preferred that to be Salah because he's more of a consistent provider. But Nunes pops up with that moment and maybe showing that, yes, I've been out from injury, but I'm ready to basically pick up where I left off, which is, in arguably the best form of his Liverpool career. So, yeah, if he can do that to the end of the season, then I think that's more exciting than anything else awards-wise, because it'll play a big part in Liverpool going on to win a couple more trophies, hopefully. And yeah, that's all they need. They need him to sort of keep up this consistency and be the forward that everyone hoped he would be when he joined Liverpool, because he's been showing now for a while that he is he's turning into that. He's definitely becoming that.
No doubt. And 2024 Nunes just seems a bit different all of a sudden, like the way, like say, goals, assists. So as long as he keeps that up, may get in the mix, but hard to say. And the final one, Alexis McAllister. And it's a good question, this, I think, because I know we talked a while ago about him being a 6, and I know you said you preferred him deeper, but especially people are cottoning on to those last 4 games a bit higher up, 3 assists and a goal, and really, I don't know if there's a better phrase, but gone up a level for me personally. Have you changed your mind about how deep you'd like to see McAllister, or is it just get him on the pitch, basically?
No, I absolutely have changed my mind. I was, what do I know, to be fair? But he's just been great. I thought one of the issues he sort of had when he first moved into that advanced position was that Liverpool seemed to struggle to get him on the ball. He'd go through a lot of games with very few touches, or, and he just wasn't seeing enough of it. So I thought that the solution to that was to get him in the 6, but they've increasingly found ways to find him, whether that's his positioning or the way that Jurgen Klopp set his team up to fire the ball into McAllister. But they've absolutely solved that issue. So I was clearly wrong about that. And one of the things I thought he would have issues with is because the areas around the 8s are so tight at times that and he's not the biggest. He's creating space for himself, but he still just does that anyway with his movement and drifting into those zones. So I just clearly underrated him in terms of his ability to adapt to doing that. And you can't. How could you look at his output in recent games and not think that he absolutely needs to be in that advanced role? So, and it's also quite helpful that Wataru Endo has basically turned into peak Fabinho as well. That's quite handy in terms of that debate around who should be in the 6. So I think those two are sort of first name on the team sheet in midfield at the moment, aren't they? And in the positions you would expect. So. Yeah, I was absolutely changed my mind on McAllister and really, really loving watching him play at the moment. He was, as I say, he was phenomenal at Forest and basically could have had 4 or 5 assists in that game alone. So yeah, what a player, and let's keep him in that advanced role because it's absolutely working.
I know we talked about it last week in terms of who was the signing of the season. We had that discussion. McAllister, team of the season contender for you?
Yeah, it's absolutely got to be up there. I think he's Liverpool's most important midfielder, isn't he? I sort of thought at the start of the season, don't know if it's because he was playing in the 6 or whatever, and Szoboszlai had a really good start, hadn't he? You thought of the 2 midfielders, Szoboszlai looked the best position to be the one who really kicked on, but I think McAllister's just gone from strength to strength. He's played multiple positions now and done it well in that midfield, and he's so good on literally both sides of the ball. He provides absolutely everything you want from a Jurgen Klopp midfielder. His intelligence seems like a really nice lad as well. It seems like he's really fitted into the squad and is a big part of that too, which I think is a massive factor. And how many midfielders in the league are playing better than him in this season? I can't think there's going to be many. So yeah, I think he absolutely be in team of the season contention. He should be. If Liverpool are providing any midfielder to that team of the season, he would be number 1 pick for that. So he should be injured, particularly if Liverpool go and win the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything is good at the moment. Liverpool are winning at the last minute. Let's just hope. And I know people are going to have a go at me of this because they do in Discord, but it's another massive week, isn't it? Sparta, Thursday, and the big one that all roads are leading towards, which leads to my final question now. David, would you take a point on Sunday if it was offered now?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've long thought, and I think I've possibly said it on the podcast, I'm not sure, but I've long thought that, even though I know that the league table doesn't necessarily suggest it, I've always thought Liverpool have to beat City at Anfield to win the league, to have any chance of winning the league. You can't. I just don't think you can afford to leave the points on the table against Manchester City. Who's going to beat them? Who's going to take points off them? It doesn't happen very often. You can't miss that opportunity to do it. And I think, if it comes away with a point, And yes, Liverpool are 1 point ahead. I mean, it gives Arsenal a chance actually to go top. But I still think City the biggest threat personally. But I think if you go into it, it's a 10-game shootout and there's only 1 point in it. That you just back City because they win relentlessly at this time of year. You have to open that gap. You have to give yourself room for manoeuvre. I know. I think United at Old Trafford's going to be tough. I think Everton at Goodison Park's going to be a difficult one. It always is. So Liverpool have to give themselves a cushion. I don't think they can afford to miss that chance. So for me, I think when they draw, I'll sort of be justifying it and saying, it's not a bad point. It keeps Liverpool where they are. But in reality, I think, and I'm going to stick to this, that Liverpool have to win that game if they're going to win the league.
Yeah, it's huge. All roads seem to lead to this game for months that we've been talking about. And the next time we come back together, let's hope we're talking about the exact same thing, hook or by crook. Although it'd be nice if we won, because I do feel it shaves years off our lives to keep doing wins this way. But
yeah, can we just I'm like a 3-0 win, 2 goals before half time, and then a third just to wrap it up in the 70th minute? That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Just a quiet canter playing out like a training game. But yeah, I think we'll wake up at some point. But yeah, ladies and gents, we have asked everything, and I'll say it again. The massive week is coming. It's Sparta Prague. It's City. But all it leaves me to say is, as ever, David, thank you for the time and insight. It is greatly appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
If you own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles and have an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, listen up. CarShield has a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that covers more parts than ever. Visit carshield.com/audio to find out how you could pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Get your free quote today at carshield.com/audio. That's carshield.com/audio.